Tommy Lee Jones, Linda Hamilton, and a script written by John Carpenter. Sounds like a winning combination to me. Today we discuss Black Moon Rising on Drew Reviews. So, guys, if you're like me, I never even heard about Black Moon Rising until about 5 years ago. Me and the guys over at Macho Movie Madness stumbled upon it, and we decided to review it for our Warehouse B section of the program. So be sure and check out that review over there on Macho Movie Madness. At the time, I can tell you I didn't like it as much as I do now after subsequent viewings and about 5 years' time and familiarity. So in the beginning, we're introduced to Tommy Lee Jones's character of Quint, and he is hired by the federal government to steal these documents from the Lucky Dollar Corporation. They've been racketeering and money laundering. So he goes to their headquarters and he does get the documents, but a former colleague named Marvin, played by Leaving from the band Fear, and he was Mr. Body in Clue, he makes them out at the spot, and so they're firing machine guns at him, and he makes this escape. So while all this has been going on, you've got this group of three guys. One of them was the former number three at NASA, played by Richard Jekyll, and they've developed this supercar that runs on hydrogen called the Black Moon. And my friend Chris, in our old review, likened it to a Hot Wheels car. Which is awesome because if you've seen like futuristic Hot Wheels cars, they actually do look a little bit like this. But Quint knows he's being followed by Marvin and his goons, so he has to hide this tape somewhere before they find him. And he's talking to these guys and found out they're going to LA, and he knows exactly where they're going to. So he stuffs this tape in this little pouch by the rear license plate. And sure enough, here comes Marvin and his goons, and Quint makes this escape into the desert. But that night, he's there in LA at the Betsy, and he's getting ready to get his tape back from these guys when this group of car thieves come in, led by Linda Hamilton, who's got the most terrible wig I've ever seen in my life on. They steal all these cars outside of this ritzy hotel, and one of which is the Black Moon. And she doesn't really realize what she has until she gets into it and hits all the buttons and the thing takes off. But anyway, Quint sees what they're doing, and they've locked the doors, so he busts out the window and he chases after them. And it's funny because you've got this supercar, and it's supposed to go 300 plus miles per hour, but Quinn is chasing it in his little beater and keeping up with it pretty good. I thought that was really funny. So then we're introduced to the character of Nina, played by Linda Hamilton, and she kind of leads this group, but she's actually led by Robert Vaughn's character of Ryland, who leads the entire ring. And he's not a very good guy. They choke a guy out with some piano wire in an elevator whenever he's having some issues with him. But the rest of the movie is pretty much Tommy Lee Jones getting in with Nina. They end up falling for each other, of course. And she realizes she doesn't want to work for Ryland anymore. And he's just trying to get this tape and retire. Bubba Smith, the federal agent who hired him, is coming down on him. You've only got 3 days to get this job done. So there's some tension in this movie. In the end, it's Quint and Nina and the guys who own the Black Moon, and they are trying to get the car back, A, so he can get his tape back before Bubba Smith does something bad to him. We'll get to that here in a little bit. But B, so the guys can sell this car to Boeing or these Italians or whatever. But as far as things I liked about this movie, the Black Moon's pretty cool. At the very beginning, it's shown going across the desert, and all the lights on the dash are lit up, and as it slowly decompresses, the lights fade little by little, and it's pretty cool for a futuristic looking car. Tommy Lee Jones is excellent, as he is in just about everything as Quint. He's got some lines in this movie that are great, like the morning after he sleeps with Nina, he leaves a note on her car that says, because she's got all these cars that she's stolen, and it says, you shouldn't leave a car this pretty out on the street of a nighttime. It'll get stolen, sure as hell. And sure as hell, it's almost like Tommy Lee Jones himself wrote that note. I can hear him saying that line. Linda Hamilton's pretty good in this movie. She's still got her 80s Terminator and Beauty and the Beast hair, but she does a pretty good job for the most part. Robert Vaughn, the main villain, is good in just about anything. And him as Ryland, he's got all the muscle around him, and he tells him what to do, and he's got the hots for Nina. He hired her when she was nobody, and there's a little bit of heartbreak with that character when you see she's turning on him and going to Quint. There's a couple of really unintentionally funny scenes in this movie, one of which includes Bubba Smith, the federal agent who's hired Quint. He says, I'm going to take all this heat that's coming down on my head and I'm going to transfer it to your body. As he's looking at him, dead in the eyes by his shirt collars. And that line made me laugh. The 14-year-old boy in me was just dying with laughter at that scene. The other really unintentionally funny scene in this movie is where they're under the Terminator underpass. It's supposed to be the Ryland, ground level garage, but they forgot some equipment. So one of the brothers, played by William Sanderson, who was in Blade Runner and Lonesome Dove, he's plays this mute character, and so he goes back across the street to get this equipment. And as he comes back, the bad guys know they're there, spying on them, and he gets hit by this car. And as he's flying up in the air, his brother's, ah, no! It's just, that scene's funny. But I like the way the scene's played out because right behind this car that hits him is this dump truck with this big bucket, and it lifts him up and puts him in the back of the truck. Really like that scene, and it was one of my favorite scenes in the movie, even though it might have been for the wrong reasons. The dynamic between Quint and Nina is pretty good. Tommy Lee Jones and Linda Hamilton. But it's kind of funny because I read somewhere that Linda Hamilton just actually detested Tommy Lee Jones in this movie because he was deep in his alcoholic phase and she really didn't like working with him. But their chemistry really comes across in some of those scenes, especially that second love scene. The night before the finale, he gets beat up by Marvin and his goons really bad. He gets like kicked in the nuts twice and just repeatedly punched and battered. And there's this really cool scene where he's crawling underneath his car, and they're like, "What are you doing, Quint?" And they pull him out, and he's got a gun stashed under his car. Starts firing at him. But all that's paid off with the very last scene of the movie where they're getting ready to make love for the second time. And he can't even roll over on top of each other. It hurts so bad. And she's like, "Maybe you should just rest." And I really like that scene. That's a funny way to end the movie. The climax of this movie is very Bondish. Quinn, of course, has all these gadgets. He's a professional thief. And so they go into Ryland Towers, and there's the Ryland Tower, and there's a tower that they're building that's not finished yet. And so he goes through the unfinished building, and he shoots the grappling hook and kind of zip lines his way over slowly. And of course, he's hurt from the night before and beat up, and he can't hardly make it. And there's a scene of the grappling hook on the other side giving away, and it's kind of a failed attempt at building tension. That was okay for what it was, but he finally gets over there and he rescues Nina because Nina was trying to help him get the Black Moon and gets her out of this closet and everything. And so they come up on Ryland and his goons. Nina and Quint are in the Black Moon and they're like, "It's over, give it up." And so they take this car and they're just driving it around the top of this tower at 300 miles an hour. I doubt they were going 60, but there's this amazing scene here in the climax where they jump from one tower to the other when they hit the boost button. And of course, that was copied, and I believe it was Fast and Furious Part 7, where they jump in Dubai. And so this movie, for as few people has actually seen it, is pretty influential when you think about it. I don't know who from the Fast and Furious franchise saw that. Probably Vin Diesel. He's a big sci-fi guy. But yeah, you guys owe quite a bit to Black Moon Rising. So another thing I like about this movie, it was shot by Harley Cokeless, who did like a few episodes of Xena and Hercules, and he did a few smaller profile movies. But the film stock they used in this movie, I really like. This is on YouTube if you want to see it. I'm eventually going to buy the Blu-ray, but there's a really good version on YouTube. But yeah, something about like the darks in this movie and people's skin tones, it really pops, and that's something you don't see in a lot of movies. Like I said, I don't know if it was the film stock or just the lighting choices that they used, but I really liked that, and I thought it was worth mentioning. As far as things about the movie that I don't like so much, like I said, the grappling hook scene kind of fails to build tension. Nina's wig in the beginning is just awful. Uh, it looks terrible on her. The scene wherever he's chasing her, trying to figure out where she's taking the Black Moon when she goes back to Ryland Towers. There's no way he should have been able to keep up with her in that 80s car. So there's a scene in the third act of the movie where Quint rescues Nina from that supply closet, and they go and they find the Black Moon down below, and it's in this cage. And we've been told this entire time, Quint's this high-level freelance thief, and he uses all these gadgets that are like James Bond type deals, to break into places. And there's this master lock, and he can't get it open. And there's alarms been sound, and it's a failed attempt to build tension once again. So I hate that scene because Quint's supposed to be this, freelance professional thief who can break into anything, and he can't break a master lock. but he has to rely on Nina to do it, and I kind of like that they have to depend on each other to get out of this situation. So that's kind of a love-hate scene. The other thing about this movie, I'm like, nah. John Carpenter supposedly wrote this movie, and I think he did come up with the original idea. But there's two other writers who are credited, and I think they took his original vision and changed it to make it what it is. And it is okay. It's a pretty decent movie, but I would like to have seen the original. I'd like to read the original script if it's somewhere online. And I would like to have seen John Carpenter's actual vision for what he had, because I believe he wrote this before he even wrote Escape from New York, which was in the 70s. So this film, the idea of this film had been floating around for about 10 years at this point. So I do like Black Moon Rising quite a bit. It's one of those movies that I never heard about until I grew up and started searching YouTube for B movies. So it was one of these movies that flew under the radar. It didn't make very much money. It's actually a Roger Corman New Worlds Pictures film. When me and the guys at Macho actually reviewed this, we discovered it on a trailer for Hell Comes to Frogtown, which I brought to the group to review. And we're like, oh man, we got to review and watch that. It is a pretty decent little underrated movie. Me and the guys on Macho actually rated it lower than what I'm going to today. I'm going to give it a 6.6 out of 10. I think there's a lot there. I like the character development. There's a lot of unintentionally funny scenes. The dialogue between everybody involved. Everybody that I talked to says there's not quite enough action, but when I recently rewatched it, I thought, well, they may be wrong there. There's enough action there to hold my attention for an hour and a half. So if you haven't seen Black Moon Rising, check it out. Like I said, there's a very good version over on YouTube. So guys, I'm not sure what I'm doing next for Drew reviews. I'm kind of shooting these out of sequence at this point. But let me know down in the comments what you want to see. Let me know what you think of Black Moon Rising if you've seen it. If you haven't, check out that YouTube video, and then let me know what you think about Black Moon Rising. Be sure to like and subscribe. And as always, guys, I'm Andrew, and I'll see you down the line.